I want you to just imagine waking up at 3 a.m. You know the feeling. You're just lying there staring at the ceiling, and you have this heavy, just undeniable existential knot in your stomach.
Yeah, that classic 3 a.m. dread.
Right, exactly. But it's not about your mortgage or your relationship. It's because yesterday afternoon, your company announced this massive, mandatory rollout of new generative AI tools across literally every department. And the unspoken question just hanging in the air of your entire office right now is simply what happens to us.
It's a profound shift, really. I mean, we spent decades building expertise, and suddenly a software update makes us question our fundamental worth in the marketplace. It's terrifying.
It really is. Welcome, listeners, to another My Mind MashUps deep dive where we unravel mysteries, spark curiosity, and make sense of complex ideas together.
So glad to be here.
And hey, thank you to all the listeners that showed their appreciation by buying us a coffee. If you'd like to support our channel, the link is in the description below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy content that makes you think.
It is fantastic to be diving into this with you today. There's just so much to unpack.
There really is.
Yeah.
Because every single deep dive we do is about sparking curiosity, challenging assumptions, and expanding your understanding. And today, we are doing that by looking at this massive stack of recent research.
Right, the data is just overwhelming right now.
Oh, completely. We have this comprehensive brief called The Great Skill Reset Plus, data from BCG, the Stanford AI Index, MIT Sloan, the World Economic Forum, and some truly fascinating psychological studies. But we are not here to just rattle off statistics and technical jargon, you know?
No, nobody wants to just hear spreadsheets read out loud.
Exactly. We are on a mission to answer that deeply human 3 a.m. question. Can we stay valuable in the age of AI? We need to figure out exactly how these tools are shifting the workplace right now and how you can actually navigate this transition.
And to do that, I mean, we really have to start by validating that 3 a.m. feeling you mentioned.
Yeah.
If you are listening to this and you have felt that sudden rush of panic when a new AI model drops, you are not being overly dramatic.
Oh, thank goodness.
Right. It is an entirely rational response. And more importantly, it's actually a documented psychological phenomenon.
I am so glad we're starting here because it feels like everyone is quietly freaking out, but no one wants to admit it out loud at the water cooler. You know, like we are all pretending to be perfectly fine while secretly just sweating.
Totally. Psychologists at the University of Florida have actually recognized how pervasive this is, and they've proposed a clinical concept for it. They call it AI replacement dysfunction, or ARD.
Wait, they gave it an official acronym?
They did.
Wow, that suddenly makes the whole thing feel incredibly real.
It is very real. It falls under a broader academic theme called algorithmic anxiety.
Algorithmic anxiety, right on.
And the researchers identified specific symptoms of AIR, which include exactly what you described: insomnia, heightened paranoia about your performance, and a really profound loss of identity.
Just feeling like you don't know who you are professionally anymore.
Exactly. People are experiencing denial about AI's relevance to their specific jobs, coupled with these deep, creeping feelings of worthlessness. I mean, we tie so much of our personal identity to our professional competence.
We really do.
So when a machine mimics that competence, it just fractures our sense of self.
It reminds me of the phantom vibration syndrome we all got when early cell phones came out. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, when you'd swear your phone was buzzing in your pocket, but it wasn't.
Exactly. Except this is on a massive identity-shattering scale. It's like a phantom redundancy syndrome. You're sitting at your desk doing a task you've done for 10 years, and you were suddenly wondering, is an algorithm doing this better than me in a server room somewhere right now?
Yes. And that silent dread, it shows up clearly when you analyze how people communicate online. This is where the research gets incredibly fascinating.
Okay, lay it on me.
So researchers analyzed vast amounts of online narratives about algorithmic displacement. And to do this, they first used a standard sentiment analysis tool called Vader.
Wait, they used an algorithm to measure people's fear of algorithms.
Yes.
That is incredibly ironic. But what is Vader exactly?
So Vader is basically a lexical tool. It just scans text for specific positive or negative keywords. And when Vader scanned these online discussions about AI in the workplace, it reported that the sentiment was actually 52% positive.
Really?
Yeah, people were using words like efficient, helpful, and future.
Okay, so on the surface, everyone sounds like an enthusiastic early adopter, like, go Team AI.
Exactly. But then the researchers applied a much more complex model, a BERT classifier.
Okay.
And unlike Vader, which just hunts for keywords, a BERT model understands context, nuance, and the relationship between words in a sentence.
Ah, so it reads between the lines.
Precisely. When Bert analyzed those exact same conversations, the results completely flipped. It showed 51% negative sentiment.
Oh, that is brilliant. So their actual words were masking their true feelings.
Yes.
They were typing things like, I'm so excited for the future of this helpful tool, but the context of how they formed their sentences revealed that underneath, they were absolutely terrified.
You nailed it. The Bert model exposed a foundation of shattered trust and technostress. People are trying to maintain this facade of corporate optimism, but the anxiety is just bleeding through.
Wow.
We see this in a global ADP survey as well, which revealed that only 22% of workers strongly agree that their job is safe.
Only 22%, so nearly 8 out of 10 people are walking around with some level of professional dread.
Pretty much, yeah.
But, I mean, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Are people just reacting to scary sci-fi headlines, or do the actual adoption numbers in the workplace justify this massive level of panic? Because sometimes the fear of the monster in the closet is, way bigger than the actual monster.
That is the pivotal question. And to answer it, we have to move away from the psychological fear and look at the hard data on what generative AI is actually doing to the labor market right now.
Okay, let's look at the data.
The data from BCG provides a really crucial distinction here. It draws a very clear line between two concepts: reshaping and eliminating.
Walk me through the difference, because to a lot of people, those probably sound like synonyms for getting fired.
Right? Reshaping sounds like HR jargon for you're out. But it is a vital difference. BCG estimates that roughly 50 to 55% of U.S. jobs will be reshaped by AI over the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay, over half?
Yes. But reshaping means the role itself stays intact. The daily tasks, the tools used, and the expected output change fundamentally, but the human is still in the seat. How they drive the car is just different.
Got it.
On the other hand, they estimate that only 10 to 15% of jobs face actual elimination 5 years from now.
Okay, so it is a massive shift in how we work, but it is not necessarily a mass extinction event for human employment.
That is the takeaway from the data. The World Economic Forum's net employment projections reflect this as well. By 2030, they forecast that while 92 million roles might be displaced globally,
which is a huge number.
It is. But 170 million new jobs could be created by this technological shift. That is a net gain of 78 million jobs.
Wow.
And the shift is already well underway. The real-time population survey showed that by late 2025, 41% of U.S. workers were already using generative AI on the job.
But wait, there's a massive disconnect there.
How so?
Well, if 41% of workers are already using it, but Pew Research says only 6% of workers believe AI will actually create more jobs, we have a problem. The reality of the tool is completely divorced from the belief in its benefits. It makes me wonder if reshaping is just corporate speak for, we fired your 2 coworkers, here's an AI chatbot, you are now doing the work of 3 people.
That skepticism is entirely warranted.
Yeah.
I mean, when workers hear reshaping, they immediately hear doing more with less support.
Exactly.
To see what reshaping truly looks like in practice without the corporate spin, we need to look at the controlled productivity experiments that researchers have run in actual workplaces.
Yes, let's get into the trenches. What actually happens to human output when people use these tools?
The results are striking. In a large field experiment involving over 5,000 customer support agents at a Fortune 500 company, introducing a generative AI assistant increased productivity by about 15%.
Okay, that's solid.
Right. And in a separate randomized trial with professional coders across Microsoft, Accenture, and other tech firms, those using the GitHub Copilot tool saw a 26% boost in completed tasks.
Wait, a 26% boost is huge. That is essentially getting a full day of your work week back.
It is incredibly significant. But the most fascinating detail hidden in these studies is who actually gets that boost.
Who is it?
The less experienced workers gain the absolute most from the AI tools.
Really?
Yeah, the AI acted as an equalizer. It lifted the junior employees up to a much higher baseline of performance incredibly fast.
Oh, wow.
Meanwhile, the highly experienced veteran workers saw minimal, and in some isolated cases, slightly negative effects from the AI.
That is wild. So the intern suddenly has the analytical output of a mid-level manager because the AI is essentially automating the foundational knowledge they lack. But wait, how could a helpful tool actually lower the productivity of an experienced veteran? That doesn't make sense.
This introduces a critical concept from MIT Sloan. They call it the productivity J-curve.
The J-curve.
Yes. It is the phenomenon where the early adoption of AI actually reduces short-term productivity significantly before it eventually corrects and climbs upward.
Ah, like the shape of the letter J. It dips down before going up.
Precisely. MIT Sloan studied manufacturing firms and found that initial AI adoption reduced productivity by 1.33 percentage points. And in some heavily adjusted models looking at complex integrations, the drop was as staggering as 60 percentage points while organizations learned the new systems.
Let me see if I can translate this. Because I think a lot of people assume you buy software, you install it, and boom, you are faster.
Right, the plug-and-play myth.
Yeah, it sounds more like a restaurant deciding to switch its entire point of sale and kitchen ticketing system on a busy Friday night.
Oh, that is an excellent analogy. Let's explore that.
Right, so the food is exactly the same, the chefs are still talented, but suddenly, the wait staff doesn't know which buttons to push on the new screen, the tickets are routing to the wrong printer in the kitchen, and the entire infrastructure of how the work flows from the customer to the cook completely crashes.
Pure chaos.
Exactly. The restaurant is actually functioning way worse than it did with the old clunky system. It takes weeks of training and terrible service before the new system finally makes them faster. They hit the bottom of that J-curve.
Exactly. The drop happens because you are not just adding a tool, you are reorganizing the fundamental workflow.
Right.
You have to rebuild data infrastructure, you have to retrain staff, and you have to unlearn old habits. The veteran workers in those coding studies took a hit because their highly optimized personal workflows were disrupted by having to learn how to prompt the AI effectively.
That makes total sense. If this is resonating, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next deep dive.
And that J-curve drop is really the most dangerous part of the transition.
Why is that?
Because surviving that initial plunge in productivity assumes your employer gives you the grace period, the financial cover, and the organizational support to learn the new system.
Oh, and that raises a massive red flag. What happens if you don't have that luxury? Like, who is getting that organizational cover to learn the new restaurant POS system, and who is just being yelled at for being too slow?
The data paints a stark picture of inequality regarding who gets that support. According to BCG and Gallup, organizational leaders and managers are twice as likely to use AI frequently as individual contributors.
Wow.
Yeah, 33% of managers use it daily, compared to just 16% of frontline workers.
So the executives deciding the future of the company's AI strategy are using it constantly, but the people actually doing the daily labor aren't getting the same access or training.
Yes, and the Brookings Institution data highlights exactly how vulnerable that makes the frontline workforce. They found that while many workers possess a high capacity to adapt, there are 6.1 million U.S. workers who face extremely high AI exposure but have low adaptive capacity.
How does the research define low adaptive capacity?
It basically means they lack access to internal training programs, flexible education budgets, and the managerial support required to weather the J-curve.
They're just expected to figure it out on their own.
Exactly. And crucially, the Brookings data points out that these 6.1 million highly vulnerable workers are predominantly women working in clerical and administrative roles.
Why that specific demographic? Like, what is the mechanism making administrative roles so vulnerable right now?
Because generative AI excels specifically at what forms the bulk of administrative processing. Things like synthesizing information, drafting routine text, and basic data organization.
Right. Stuff bots are great at.
Exactly. When a technology targets those specific tasks, the people occupying those roles bear the brunt of the disruption unless they're actively upskilled.
This feels incredibly cyclical. I mean, when I hear about a specific, often marginalized demographic bearing the brunt of a massive technological shift, it makes me think of the Industrial Revolution or the dot-com boom. Are we just sleepwalking into repeating history? Are we going to leave an entire sector of the workforce in the dust?
History provides both a severe warning and a proven roadmap here. The brief draws direct parallels to mechanization in the 18th and 19th centuries, computerization from the 1970s through the 90s, and robotization in the 1980s.
Okay.
In every single one of those technological leaps, the initial transition caused brutal disruptions. Mechanization didn't just speed up weaving, it completely displaced the entire livelihood and identity of artisanal weavers.
Yeah.
Computerization eliminated entire floors of typists and physical file clerks.
Right. But eventually, computerization created millions of jobs for software engineers, IT specialists, and digital marketers.
It did, absolutely. But the crucial takeaway from those historical parallels is how that happened. That transitional pain did not automatically fix itself.
It wasn't magic.
No. It only turned into widespread prosperity when societies made massive, deliberate investments in human capital and equitable institutions. The countries that established strong public education, worker protection programs, and accessible infrastructure adapted the best and reaped the rewards.
That makes a lot of sense.
The current AI skill reset is not entirely new in its economic mechanics. It demands that exact same commitment to large-scale upskilling.
So the magic isn't in the algorithm. We can't just buy a software license and expect a utopian workplace. We have to invest heavily in the humans operating the software.
Exactly.
Which leads us to the most practical question of this entire deep dive. If history demands we invest in human capital, what exactly should we be training people to do? If an AI can write code, draft a legal brief, and analyze a spreadsheet in seconds, what makes a human inherently valuable?
To address that, researchers at MIT Sloan developed a profoundly helpful concept called the EPOCH framework.
Okay, spell that out.
That is EPOCH. It is designed to clearly identify the uniquely human traits that AI cannot easily replicate or replace.
Okay, I love a good framework. Walk us through what EPOCH actually stands for.
So the letters stand for empathy, presence, opinion, which includes judgment and ethics, creativity and imagination, and finally hope, vision, and leadership.
Empathy, presence, opinion, creativity, vision. I mean, I get empathy and creativity, but how does presence count as a skill? That just sounds like physically showing up to the office.
It is much deeper than attendance. Presence refers to the biological necessity of human connection.
Oh, interesting.
It is the unspoken trust built by sitting across the table from someone, reading their body language, networking, and sharing a physical space. An AI can schedule a meeting flawlessly, but it cannot foster the biological trust required to close a sensitive business deal.
That makes total sense. And what about vision?
Vision and hope rely on lived human experience. An AI can only predict the future based on historical data it has been trained on. It cannot envision a completely new paradigm or inspire a team of exhausted employees to keep pushing through a difficult quarter. Leadership requires a soul.
So any task that relies heavily on those 5 EPOCH traits is safe.
More than safe, they are prime candidates for augmentation, not substitution. You want to use AI to handle the routine data so the human can focus entirely on the EPOCH traits.
Do we have an example of that working?
We do. The research highlights a brilliant example of this with Synergy Bank. They introduced a generative AI system for their customer service department. But instead of using it to replace the human agents, the AI handled all the tedious routine data retrieval behind the scenes.
So the human agents were freed up from staring at spreadsheets while the customer waited on hold.
Exactly. The human agents could focus purely on empathy and complex ethical judgment when dealing with a frustrated client. The results were staggering. Productivity went up by 8%, but more importantly, customer complaints dropped by 50%.
Complaints dropped by half because the humans finally had the bandwidth to actually be human. I love this. It is basically defining the soul of a business. Think about it. An AI can draft an apology email to a furious client in 2 seconds. It will be grammatically flawless, but the empathy and judgment to know whether you should hit send on that email or if you should actually swallow your pride, pick up the phone, and call them directly to apologize, that is EPOCH. That is the human job.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. The AI provides the unprecedented speed and data synthesis. The human provides the soul, the context, and the ethical guardrails.
Right.
However, to transition millions of workers to focus primarily on these EPOCH skills requires a monumental amount of retraining. And this brings us to a severe warning from the World Economic Forum.
Uh-oh. What's the warning?
Currently, only 0.5% of global GDP is invested in adult learning.
Wait, half of 1%. That is nothing.
It is drastically insufficient. The WEF warns that this leaves a catastrophic gap in necessary reskilling. If we were to aggressively boost that investment in adult education, they estimate it could add $6.5 trillion to the global GDP by 2030. We are staring at a $6.5 trillion economic opportunity, but we are starving the very training infrastructure needed to unlock it.
So the technology is evolving at light speed, but our systems for educating and reskilling adults are basically moving at a horse and buggy pace. We are building sports cars, but refusing to teach anyone how to drive them.
Precisely. And if organizations and governments don't urgently close that training gap, that 3 a.m. anxiety you mentioned at the very beginning of our discussion is only going to intensify.
Yeah.
Particularly for the administrative and clerical workers who are most exposed to the J-curve.
You know, this has been such a vital perspective shift. because it takes the cultural conversation away from a terrifying AI is coming to steal your job narrative and moves it to a much more actionable reality. AI is coming to completely change your job, and we desperately need to build the infrastructure to train you for the new one.
Exactly. It is not a story of human obsolescence. It is a loud, urgent call to double down on our uniquely human traits.
To double down on our humanity. And that actually leaves me with a final, maybe slightly provocative thought for you to chew on today.
I'm intrigued.
If we manage to navigate this transition, if AI eventually takes over all the mundane, routine, mechanical tasks, the tedious scheduling, the data entry, the basic coding, leaving us exclusively with those EPOCH tasks.
Right.
The deep empathy, the complex ethical judgments, the visionary leadership, are we psychologically prepared for that? A future where our jobs demand our absolute, unfiltered emotional and intellectual presence every single minute of the workday.
Oof. That is a deeply compelling question. Because exercising empathy and nuanced judgment takes a massive amount of cognitive and emotional energy.
It really does. A workday with absolutely no mechanical tasks, no mental downtime where you can just zone out and format a spreadsheet, sounds exhausting in an entirely new way. We'll leave you to ponder how you would handle that. Like, comment, and subscribe to hear more My Mind MashUps deep dives.
The transition into the age of AI is clearly going to be as much about navigating human psychology as it is about implementing technology.
Find My Mind MashUps everywhere you listen. Amazon Music, Audible, Facebook, Pocket Casts, Spotify, TikTok, and YouTube. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective could shape our next deep dive.